Hi, is this working? Okay, it is. Hi. There are a few chairs down below still in the front. Hi, there are chairs in the front, people. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I believe we're live streaming, so we need to be on our best behavior. Okay, I'm going to keep quiet.
Wow, yeah.
Hi, Craig. I don't know whether I should sit there or just continue to stand here. I think I'll just stand here.
Yeah, as long as they have it on camera, you're good.
Yeah.
Dr. Sir, please have a seat over here. Feel free. Okay.
After about 45 minutes, run down. About here, the bulk.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Okay, thanks for coming today to our talk. We have Dr. Sarah Ahmed, who is going to be talking to us about her work with the Living Waters Museum. Thanks for coming to the Center for Imagination. We are also live streaming, so please go ahead, come on in. We've got a few seats upstairs. We've got a few in the back. We've got one very prime seat right here on the aisle. You don't even have to scoot by anybody. And we do have some other chairs we can pull out from the backside. Great. Excellent. All right, welcome again. So we are going to have a series of introductions, so I won't say too much, but as the director of the Center for Imagination, my name is Jamie Williams, in case you don't know. Thank you for being here today, and we appreciate your concern and care for the subject of water. So I would like to introduce Dr. Cook to give our welcome remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here. We welcome to our folks live streaming with us right now, too. We have a packed house here as well in the Center for Imagination. So a couple of board members we have here. We have board meetings this week. So I see Mr. Danny Lacey up top, who's on our general body, and here in the front row, former Woodstock staff member as well, and Deirdre Strawn here, our general body member as well on our nominations committee, and of course our special guest, Dr. Ahmed, is also one of our graduates here, and Janaki Bose is here as well, who's on our board. There, up top. Yes, there we go. I can't see you, but are there any other board members here that we could acknowledge? It's great to see all the students here as well. Of course, water is vital to all of us, as we're going to find out. Dr. Ahmed and I had a conversation, among others, with Katie Jo Walter, our Director of Advancement and Alumni Relations in Pune back in March, I think that was, and just started talking about water and museum, and certainly for us it has so much relevance in terms of our sustainability approaches. It's going to be in our strategic plan, how we approach these issues, and of course one of our guiding principles being treading lightly on the earth and our consumption of something so valuable as water, yet something so taken for granted like it is. So we are so privileged to have you here talking about Living Waters Museum, and we look forward to your talk. Thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it.
Just a quick reminder, thank you all for wearing your mask. We're going to take our mask off while we're speaking to be more clear, but if you can keep your mask on, that will be excellent. Thanks so much. Also, if you have a phone, if you could put it on silent or vibrate mode, that would be great. Thanks so much. So, you may have noticed, students, that at Goalathon there were some posters that were put up, and they had some prompts to start everyone thinking about water and what it means. So we've gathered some of the highlights from those posters, and we would like to share those with you.
One of the first questions we asked people was what their first memories related to water are. And someone said that they remember using a manual hand pump for water.
Someone said they remember scuba diving.
And someone learned how to swim in a Himalayan river.
Yes. There's also water in so much of our culture, music, art, and so that was another prompt that we asked. Navia?
Someone said that they thought about the sound of rain on a tin roof.
Someone talked about baptism, which is a religious practice of immersion in water.
And someone talked about how landscapes and lots of portraits and paintings have water in them, and that water has a mirror-like quality.
Food, of course, is very important in culture, and someone wrote pani puri.
Which we will be serving today after the talk, so make sure you stay back to have some. Another question we asked is how people feel around water, and someone said they feel calm, they feel peaceful.
Someone said they feel floaty.
Someone said they're happy.
Someone said they're sad.
And someone said, like, I'm under the water, please help me.
We loved that comment because it speaks to the power of water. Water is life-giving, but it's also dangerous, right? And it's something that we must respect the force of. And so the final prompt that we had was asking people to look at and think about the essence of water. One response was about tranquility.
Someone said that water was about purity.
And that makes a lot of sense. We often use water in washing and in religious rituals to signify purity. Someone also finally said that water, the essence of water, is life. We know that water is something that we need for life. Our bodies are made of water. Water sustains life on Earth.
So this is just what we know that students at Woodstock, teachers at Woodstock think about water. And now Ms. Katie Jo is going to introduce Dr. Sarah and talk about her work a bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Navia. So I am really excited about this today because this event, it kind of represents a lot of the things that are the best of what our global learning community is all about, all while speaking to an issue vitally important to the campus and to our world, also personally important to me, which I became very interested in water issues when I was doing Fulbright research in Uttar Pradesh back in 2011. But Dr. Sarah Ahmed is here to talk to us about it today, and I also want to welcome everyone who is on the live stream event, so our global community of Woodstock alumni, parents, friends from around the world who've joined us there. Dr. Sarah Ahmed is from the class of 1981. And since attending in 1981, she's remained active with the Woodstock community as an alumna, as a parent. She was the parent of, her son was the class valedictorian in 2014, as a donor, and also as a member of our global learning community. So as you may have seen from her profile, Dr. Ahmed has over 30 years of experience in applied research looking at water, livelihoods, and social equity. She's uniquely cultivated this experience into her passion project, the Living Waters Museum. And as you will learn during Dr. Ahmed's talk, the Living Waters Museum managed to turn crisis into opportunity during the pandemic, expanding the museum's work and finding ways to focus on the needs of the moment, including access to water for hand washing during COVID, and mental wellness and emotional wellness issues related to engaging with the topic of water. So Dr. Ahmed didn't want me to read through her whole laundry list of accomplishments in the areas of development work, academia, museum curation, and more. But what I will do is say that I'm very glad that she's here to bring us all a little closer to realizing our own everyday taken for granted relationships and dialogues with water. So these all become stories that we can then share with each other. And they become powerful ways to understand diverse perspectives and realities related to water. As part of modern day consumer society, we're often removed from direct contact with the sources of what we consume as well as the post-consumption impacts. So when we look more deeply at the connections between different aspects of our lives, societies, and cultures in relation to water, as Dr. Ahmed has, We find diverse touch points where we can better understand the importance of water, not only as a vital resource, but also as an integral part of meaning making and memory making for human communities in the world over. The slides, which we had here, I don't know if we're doing we can do some pointer? Okay. So the slides that the Dr. Ahmed had here are a testament to the many ways water is named and conceived. So this is the word for water in many different languages. And then this slide alone is dedicated to the many words for water in Sanskrit, based on the condition of the water, the purpose for which it is used, the benefit that we derive from it, and so on. So this journey of uncovering the greater complexities and interconnectedness is exactly what the Center of Imagination is here to facilitate. And I'm thrilled that we have Dr. Ahmed as an accomplished alumna to guide us on that journey today as it relates to water. So thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. And finally, he may come.
Okay, just let me drink some water. So, hi everyone, and thank you for coming. Thank you very much to the Woodstock community, to Katie, Joe, and Bob who've been hosting me, to Jamie and Priya and the team here at CFI, and of course to the wonderful people in the alumni office. So, I'm here to talk a little bit about my work and the journey and why I created the Living Waters Museum in 2017. So a lot of my life has been spent in the field, capturing stories of vulnerability, and particularly around women's relationship with water. And this summer, when I was in the US and the UK, which was facing drought and heat waves, etc., and I saw low water levels almost everywhere I went, and actually no water in some streams and rivers and things. And it really made me think that, yes, but people are still drinking water. They're not walking miles to collect water as they would be in India. And then the work on water and the kind of 25 years that I've had working in terms of paid employment and chucking it all in one day and saying that I want to look at how we communicate better on water and why this communication is so important for the young people that are our future water keepers. And this poem that was written by a little girl in a village in MP from one of the organizations that I serve on the board of in India, WaterAid. WaterAid India is the largest NGO working on water in this country, and it's part of a global family of WaterAid NGOs, beginning from the UK and Canada and Australia and all around Africa as well. I'm sure you've had time to read it, so I'm not going to read it to you, but this is, for me, one of the reasons why I moved to start this work on water. Because for most people, everywhere I've gone, and I'm sure you kids, some of you are probably no exception, that water for you is what comes from a nice, clean AquaGuard system in the school, or from a tap, or from a water bottle. And many people in India have forgotten this wonderful heritage that we had on water. The step wells in Gujarat and Rajasthan, and I'll talk a bit more about them later. The pots along the sides of roads, the parabs, but in different cultures, in different states of India with different names, where anyone could access that water. And we've forgotten what these systems and what these communities were all about, because fortunately, I'm not saying unfortunately, we all have access, more or less, to piped water systems across the country. And once you bring in piped water systems, and not everyone in India has access to piped water systems, let me correct that. Not everyone in India has access to sewage or sanitation systems either. But what has happened is that people have forgotten about the value and the importance of keeping these community water resources clean, available, etc., so that they provide secondary security during periods of drought. So one of the other NGOs that I serve in Gujarat, called Samarth, had told me the story of how they had restored small community-based step wells in Kutch. I was just talking to someone, we were talking a bit about Kutch a while ago, and this would have been in 2018 or 19. And these step wells if the aquifer is active, mind you, if the aquifer is not active, there's not much you can do about restoring that water. But if the aquifer is active, you can restore that water. And they did, and they provided water security to families, to 600 families who were getting water every 9 days from the pipeline system. Can you imagine getting water every 9 days and what that would mean for your daily hygiene and everything you need to sort of be doing with water? So when I left my job with Canada's International Development Research Centre in 2015, I went back to this dream that I always had about water museums. And, consulted friends and people and artists and all of that, and realized that no one in India knew what a water museum was, and no one in India knew what a virtual museum was. So I was fortunate that friends told me about this event that was happening in Venice in 2017 to launch a global network of water museums. And I went to that and I saw that water museums around the world are doing amazing things. They host the technology and the systems and all that we've known from ancient days about how water is, lifted and stored, and the Persian wheel, and so many more things I can talk to you about. But they also engage with people. And in 2018, this network that we launched, and which is now also 5 years old, in 2018, we were recognized by UNESCO's Intergovernmental Hydrology Program as a special initiative towards Sustainable Development Goal 6 on water, because of the work that museums do around public education and outreach efforts. And part of this has been about thinking about this new paradigm on water. Why is it important, the work that water museums are doing? And water museums are not all of them buildings and four walls, okay? There are many museums in our network which are open-air museums. There are many museums that are, built underground in the sewage systems, in the aqueduct systems in Portugal. There are museums that are new, like in China. The National Water Museum is a gigantic structure, but then everything in China is gigantic. So the idea was that, this whole charter was all about reinforcing how we look at water from an interdisciplinary lens. And this is what the Global Net Network is. I'm not going to be talking more about this, but right now, before COVID, there were 30 million people visiting water museums around the world. And there are many, many more water museums than this. So I don't know how many of you have ever been to a water museum. Any hands? Okay, great. One person. Okay, and maybe you've been to a museum and you didn't know it was a water museum also. Some of the work that we've been doing globally, and these are exhibitions that are available online. You can't read the URLs that well, but I Remember Water was something we launched in May this year, which is a curated exhibition from the museum archives of some amazing photographs and pictures around the world of water and transformative landscapes, belonging, life, heritage, all sorts of categories. And a lot of black and white images that museums shared from their archives. And again, something we run every year, and I'd be very keen for you all to get involved in, is this contest with young people around the world from 6 to 18 years old, asking them to talk about the water they want through photographs, through short videos, music, poems, writing, etc. So this year, this little boy who suffers from muscular dystrophy was one of our winners from Ahmedabad with the help of the Coach Museum and the Riverside School. This picture of his, the Rainbow Farm, was one of the winning categories, and he got a check for 300 euros, I think. So it's good, and we'd like you to get involved. So now let me come to what I do with Living Waters Museum. And when I started this, the idea was to I couldn't afford to build a physical museum, and I'm not sure that I really believe now in the power of physical museums. Some of them is, I mean, obviously you need museums, but I wanted to start with a virtual repository and to work with young people to create those stories and, you know, to celebrate water heritage, both the tangible and the intangible aspects of our water. And so we work in collaboration with schools, very much like Woodstock. We work with nonprofit organizations, with creative artists, and all the content that I will go through, some of it on the website for you, but all the content goes through a process of research, visualization, design, and much back and forth with me and other people till we get it right, and then till we can actually post it as a story. And that could take anything from 6 months to a year. So that's what the website looks like. Those of you with phones, you can look at livingwatersmuseum.org. You can go through the museum. I'm not going to open it over here. And there are galleries on communities and livelihoods, water and the arts, design and architecture, our own work that comes under exhibitions, and also around ecologies and nature, water. And then we have a map view, and each story, when you click on it and you start looking at it, it moves horizontally, because the idea is that when you walk in a museum, you walk horizontally. You don't walk straight into a wall, right? So I'm going to now give you kids some idea of the kind of content we have and what we're looking, and how that could be something we could develop together with the Woodstock community on our Himalayan waters. Oh. So, sorry. I'm going to have a sip of water. How many of you have been inside a stepwell? Yeah, some of you have. I know you came to Ahmedabad a few years ago, some of you as well. And so a lot of the work on stepwells in India has been in the form of very beautiful coffee table books or exhibitions. And what we've begun doing in Ahmedabad, but we haven't moved very far with it, is we wanted to create an interactive map where you could click, oh, thank you, Katie, where you could click on the various stepwells, and you'd see the stories about them. So some of this map is there, but it's not finished yet. We also worked with a group called Scan the World India and the UK to do photogrammetry. I'm sure some of you know what photogrammetry is, but it's a way also of looking at the design and the architecture from many different aspects. And so you'll see all this on our website, but photogrammetry is used a lot right these days in terms of archaeology and digital archaeology as well. And we wanted people to have this immersive storytelling experience. So we worked a lot with an NID, which is the National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad. And the students used to come and spend 6-month internships with us. So one of them, Paul Brito, created the story of Munna, this little girl who falls down a well, much like Alice in Wonderland falls down a tunnel. And she discovers this whole underwater world where there is no water, because the water is being pulled up by these taps are actually sucking groundwater up for urbanization and development. So Munna has to navigate her way out of the stepwell. So this was meant to be a storyboard for an interactive video game. Of course, we can't afford to do the gaming part of it, because that's technology at a scale that I don't have access to. That's the Microsofts of the world, really. But Brito worked with us and developed the assets for this amazing story. Rivers like the Sabarmati tell us a lot. So we've been working on creating archives, and there are many, many rivers in India which I think we need to start creating archives on. And this is the Sabarmati, which flows through Ahmedabad. And this student, again, Raj, managed to find photographers who had been documenting this river for more than 50 years. Of course, unfortunately, a lot older than that was very hard to find for him. But anyway, black and white pictures and all. I don't know whether you can all see the slides, but I can, and we can't make it any darker here, right? But it's okay, you can see the slides, more or less, yeah. Pots, water pots, utensils, they tell us stories about culture, about food, about work. And this is, again, a really interesting museum in Ahmedabad where we were based for 3 years. So you hear me talking a lot about Ahmedabad in Western India. And this is a museum which is a private collection of these utensils. And we kind of curated stories. I'm not going to read all of this right now because we won't have time. But we wrote these little 100 words, what we called pot stories, not that pot. But anyway, we had the people in the museum themselves, the staff, photographing our models in a way. And if you see these stories, then the water pot, it's usually women who walk to fetch and collect water and all of that. And it's men who will be doing the traveling and drinking, and from the mashk, which is a leather pouch, which even now, if you are in the old by-lanes of some of India's towns, you will still see the mashk, and you will see the Bishti community selling water. So that was something we did. We also, because it was a museum associated with a restaurant, we also, the student Swarnika looked at virtual water, which is the water embedded in the food that you're eating, right? And so if you see that this Holly over here, she kind of had calculated how much water goes into both the growing of the grains and the vegetables and etc., but also the production of a chapati and your dal and things like that. So, and then she created all these cards, and it was supposed to be a game that you could, create your own thali and then just see how much water you were actually consuming, and that's what we call our virtual water footprint. Because of my background around gender and gender rights and women's rights, we curated a global exhibition on women, water, and work, where we invited entries from around the world. They were largely India-focused, but that's also an amazing online exhibition. I'm not going to go into all of these things because I'm just trying to give you an idea of the work that a virtual museum can do and how broad it is. This is something I'm going to talk a little bit more about, because this is something I'm very passionate about. So Confluence was an online exhibition that we launched in March 21, but that we started working on when the pandemic started. And I hope that's not a fire alarm. No, okay. Anyway, during the pandemic, we pulled together this amazing collaborative partnership, all on Zoom. Right? And we had conservation architects, we had researchers, we had photographers, we had an artist from the Kohli community, the fishing community, working with us to create this exhibition that talks to us about Bombay's water history and Bombay's water journey. How many of you are from Bombay? Mumbai? Some of you, some of us, okay. I know a few up there as well. So the story of fountains, for example, the beautiful public fountains, the flora fountains, etc. These are also examples of philanthropy that unfortunately are now lying unused. Then I want to tell you that we've also, New Bombay, Navi Mumbai, and how it developed as a planned urban space. Right, taking into consideration the farmers and the fishing community that also lived over here. And then this was done in the form of a graphic story with a teacher and her students exploring this place and talking about water and development and how it can all happen in a more equitable and a more sustainable manner. We wanted very much to look at issues of caste and exclusion. Now, you know in India that if you come from the lower caste community, if you come from the Dalit community, you can't drink water from the same source. You know that. And Ambedkar, who is the father of India's constitution, many years ago launched this movement called the Anyway, he took people to this source of water, and they drank water, the lower caste community. Sorry, did I skip one? No. And this was also created as a graphic story, right? Very interestingly done, and I'm sure many of you would have read or heard about the story that happened in India, in Rajasthan a few weeks ago, about a little boy who drank water from his teacher's pot, and because the teacher was from the upper caste community, he slapped the boy, and the boy eventually died, a 9-year-old kid. And to think that this happens in India that's celebrating 75 years of independence, I think that this is really, really offensive. And we all do this. We all still keep glasses and mugs separately for people who work with us or come to our homes or something. It's not something that's just gone away. So we wanted to talk about caste. The Mithi is one of the rivers there as well in Bombay. It shapes Mumbai's lifeline also in a way, the creek. So all these were things you could click on and they would pop up. This is also one that I'm very happy about. This was done by young people who run a nonprofit organization called the Coastal Conservation Foundation. And they did this 3D interactive diagram that talked about the marine life. And each of these 200 dots that you see over here, if you just click on them, one of these things will pop up and it will tell you about a little crab or a little crustacean or some shellfish or the other that lives beneath your feet. And most of us who live there don't even really know much about these creatures or think about them. Because we were also in a time of COVID, we wanted to look at the public health history and how in the past we coped with epidemics and pandemics and so forth. And we didn't want this to just be a boring, lot of slides on history. So we intersected them with silkscreen scrolls from an artist in America, Basia Erland, who's also a very dear friend. And each of these scrolls has a different waterborne infection on it. So it could be cholera, it could be typhoid. These are all silk screens of the larger microbes that are there in our water. So, how do we use that? And then there are worksheets for children, and there are these postcards, love stories to water in Bombay. And I think Priya's printed some of them, and they're up on the other side of this wall over there. But this is something that maybe we could have you do in terms of your water sources here around you in Missouri. So postcards to water and postcards from water to us, We did the same thing in Pune this year on a smaller scale. We launched Punyache Pani, where I'm currently based at the Indian Institute of Science, Education, and Research. So we have young students doing their integrated BS and MS program. And so they also worked with us in creating these stories about Pune's waters. I won't go into all of this right now, but we are using this for another project, which is funded on water classrooms. So the mainstream education on water in India is very dominated by the physical sciences and the natural sciences. So we wanted to bring in elements of history, art, creativity, and practical applications. So we're still working on this project, and we're testing it with about 25 kids who come from 4 different schools to us every Sunday to go through different topics in this thing on water classrooms. Any of you from Rajasthan or been to Jodhpur, to the Mehranga Museum? So we're working with that museum to work through their archives. So what you see in here, this art and the art on the top, this is all from the beautiful miniature paintings in the archives of the museum, and it's been adapted. But we're working with them to build an exhibition that will look at water from the time of the Maharajas to everyday water in Jodhpur. So that's some of the kind of work that's being developed over there. And that's the Persian wheels that you see on the fort. I think there are 4 of them there. And eventually these drawings will be animated in GIFs and you'll see the water coming down. In Calcutta, we are working, any of you from Calcutta here? Upstairs, yeah, hi. You can't see over there, you should move. Can you see? You can't see anything, you've been sitting there. Move there, there's some empty chairs there. So Calcutta also, we're working to document the Ghats, and we're using, I think a lot of you will know what 360 photographs are. So 360 images, doing that kind of work, and doing this mapping and all that. I have some postcards from the work on Calcutta, so you can all take one each if you want. We're also, with a small grant from the US Consulate in Calcutta, working on a project called Climate Wall. And Climate Wall is to build a virtual wall on how young people think about climate change and the kind of actions they can take, but also to build a physical wall in a small one, a pilot, in the Sundarbans with these mangrove species that local communities want. And I must say the work, it's really interesting because, you know, we all talk about what a drag Zoom was, but Zoom also helped us build bridges, and we were able to connect children from schools in Calcutta with schools in Dhaka, for example, and we couldn't bring the students over, but we were able to connect them. Much of what we do, so I want to say that a virtual museum, and you've seen this from some of the slides I've shown you, we're not just a website. It would be impossible for us to call ourselves a museum if we were just a website. And so I think a lot of what we're doing around water is also getting people to experience water in all its different forms and manifestations. So this is music, Jal Tartarang, which is played with a matka. But you can do it in many ways. You can use glasses, and the sound of water or the sound that you're making will be a reflection of the material that water is contained in, and also whether the vessel is half full or half empty, you know, however you want to look at it. So that is my colleague Sukrit Sen in one of our classes at the university, getting students to sing and dance and play music on that pot over there. And I think a lot of what we've been doing with young people is also stimulating conversations on water, on sustainability, on justice, and on development and the kind of development that they want. So we have a little cafe, and we were having these conversations. The kids were talking actually about the Northeast, which is a very fragile part. We've also been taking children to see step wells, to see some of their water heritage, and I don't have a picture here, but some of these kids, these step wells were actually in their village and often in their backyards, and they don't really know the importance of these step wells. So that was something. This was with Minket Lepcha. Maybe some of you heard about her or heard her speak at the Mountain Festival. Sorry, her name is missing from this slide. But anyway, this was the project that she again did during the lockdown in 2021. With these adolescent girls in the Northeast, getting them to connect on Zoom and have all these amazing workshops, but then create art and films and all sorts of things. And that's an exhibition, and that was a project funded with the British Council. And finally, we also launched in 2020 this thing called the Water Seekers Fellowship for older people. And again, that was a way that we were reaching out to people who were at home and didn't have anything to sort of engage with. And so they could, it was a mentored fellowship, and they could, instead of, if they couldn't go out and take photographs and all, a lot of these people did artwork, and this is a Zoroastrian priest looking at sacred water, and that's something also important to us, how water intersects with faith. And I think, yeah, and this is the Kulams in South India also. So a lot of very interesting ways of building stories, building content on water. And I'm going to end by saying that virtual museums are, have I got more time to speak, or I'm okay, I think? Yeah. Yeah. So virtual museums, and any museums really, have this what we call soft power. Being virtual, we're flexible, we're adaptive, we can have different chapters that are contextual and embedded locally. We can look at how we can work with different stakeholders and build different kinds of partnerships. Obviously, everything we do, research is critical, acknowledgements are there, facts have to be checked. It's not, you see something which is an end product, but believe me, it's gone through a lot. We want to be able to engage and educate and work with young people in order to do that. I think social media, digital tools, you've seen what I've shown you in terms of stories. Some of our outputs are behind, and that is really where we're going right now. And I think this ability to float between being virtual, but having a physical footfall is so important to what we're doing. Finally, I'm often asked about how we measure impact. And I think that's a very challenging question, right? I mean, how do you measure impact? How do you know whether what you're doing has changed the way people look at water and people think about water? To me, when I started this journey in India in 2017, I struggled with talking to people about water museums. I struggled with the concept of a virtual museum. Believe me, there wasn't anything for me to go back to. And now I see all around me, everyone's having a festival on water, everyone's doing urban art programs, talking about water, talking about climate change in India. People are wanting to build virtual museums, and unfortunately they still think that a virtual museum can be a website, and it can be a very good website, but then you have to find ways of engaging with your audience in a virtual world, and that could require a lot more funding than what we've had access to. So we're still thinking about how we measure, change, really. I think that's something that I'm going to have to work on. And also to think about the next 5 years, moving into perhaps, product development. I have with me a stole, which we did for a 5 years gift, put together by a group. This is not the best example of their work, but these are natural dyes that do not affect water, that do not affect the water when they flow out, and I'm sure they affect it in some way, but not as bad as chemical dyes. And this is shiburi, which is a Japanese form of tie and dye. As I said, this is not the best example that I have left. I've given away so many of them, but we wanted to work now with organizations that are thinking about their water footprint and are thinking about sustainability. And I think globally also we're looking at whether we can have a global platform where we can sell the work of artists that work around water and climate change, books, storybooks, things of that sort. We're thinking about that and how it would work in the world, because obviously we're not Amazon, and we're sort of thinking about how we can exchange those kind of things and what a virtual portal would mean. And so I'm talking to Woodstock about whether one of our next chapters could be around the waters over here in Missouri and the environment around Missouri. So that's what brings me here. And thank you very much for your attention. And okay, great.
mic because this is our mic. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah. I just want to say you're a visionary. And when I first started hearing about the Living Waters Museum and the work that you were doing, I have to admit it sort of blew my circuits because there's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah,
Right.
when I speak, I'm exhausted. How many times I have to
When you speak, you're exhausted. I think that the talk that you've given today has really inspired us. There's so many facets of the kind of work that we can do with water. And students, I want to encourage you, what that you heard here today makes you think about something that you want to do, an impact that you want to have. Dr. Sarah talked about measuring impact and what that could look like, but I want you to observe in yourself over the next few days, how do you think differently about water? What is the impact of this talk on you? Because there will be an impact. So observe that in yourself. Think about that going forward. I would like to just see if we have a few questions. While you might be thinking of a question or two, I want to say that tomorrow we will have an open opportunity for staff or students, if you're interested, to talk about a future collaboration with the Living Waters Museum, just like Dr. Sarah said about the waters of Missouri. That could look a lot of different ways. We want to really think creatively about creating some content, doing some research, and putting something perhaps on the virtual museum, perhaps doing another kind of exhibition that does make an impact, that is something different, that is new information that we're able to share. So that's going to be tomorrow in Lions Lounge from 12:30 to 2. Please grab your lunch and join us over in Lions Lounge. Especially staff, if you would like to be a part of that collaboration going forward. There's a lot of opportunity for that.
And everyone, please pick up 1 or 2 postcards from here before you leave, but you're not leaving right now.
Yes, there's some postcards here.
There's tea and there's pani puri and all that.
Yes, we do have some snacks. So before we dismiss for snacks, does anybody have a question they would like to ask? Or a comment that you would like to make?
Yes.
I want to know what first motivated you to start this.
What first motivated you to start this?
Okay, I thought I said that. But so now, a lot of my work around water has always been, with nonprofits, and it's been at the grassroots. But with the NGOs that I serve, I've been able to do a lot of advocacy work, and my research is on that and policy. But I realized that there was one space we were not interacting with, and that was the art space. Artists, designers in India were working on questions of sustainability, were working on questions of water. The conservation architects who were beginning to restore step wells and doing all this amazing work, these were not people we were communicating with. So I started Living Waters Museum as a means of bringing all these different stakeholders together. And I must say that whenever we've had workshops and meetings, I've always had, this feedback has always come back that this is the first time we're in a room with graphic designers, artists, conservation architects, NGOs, policymakers, academics, photographers, just think about it. Just think about that power. So the power that we have, and because this is, obviously I've worked for 30 years, so I'm able to do all of this and bring people together. But that's an amazing ability to do that. And one thing I didn't mention was that this year I was in America, in New York, and visiting family and friends, and I did go up and do a talk at Arkville in the Catskill Mountains, which is the Water Discovery Center over there, which has the whole history of New York's water systems and where the water comes from. And that was an amazing conversation, just to get that, just to have them hear about India, right? And all about all of this. So, yeah, other questions?
Questions from up top, from down below. Yes, please, Yati. Can you just stand up and speak a little loudly?
Okay, future plans. It's a good question. My team asked me that as well. So we have a very small team right now, and it's like water. It's a very fluid team. There are 2 people who worked with me for the last 4 years, and others who work for a year or 2 and then move on. And it's a good time for me to pause and just think about the next 5 years. So when we started, we did a lot of business planning, and thinking about where we would become financially sustainable and how and all of that. And I just eventually, after 6 months of business planning, I threw it out of the window. I said, let's just go with the flow. I'm sorry, these all sound like puns related to water, but that's what it was. We were just able to take up opportunities. And we were very opportunistic, let's put it that way. And things just happened, okay? I made this trip to Missouri, and I was actually only coming to Missouri and going back, and then I was in America or before that trip, and then, an invitation to come and speak about our work in Chennai at another very big museum there this weekend, to go from there to Pondicherry, to be with the Aurobindo Society that's also doing work on water and thinking. So for me right now, if I can spark or ignite other people in other places in India to start thinking about water, it's a huge amount of work that needs to be done. I also sit with the government of India, with the Jal Shakti Ministry, on an expert committee to develop a virtual museum on water for children. Now, that virtual museum is going to be linked to the NCERT curriculum and to the new education policy in India, which is, it's not a bad policy. I mean, there are parts of it which can be worked on, but it's overall, it's a very innovative policy as well. And I think that museum and the conversations and things we've had about building physical water museums in India is also something I'd like to think about. And the merchandising, how do we become financially sustainable? So the kind of things we're doing right now, we don't have a lot of money coming in. It's philanthropy that is supporting this museum as well. And I think for me, that is something I have to start thinking about. Right? That it's not going to be there forever.
Thank you. Miss Priya, are you out there? Priya? Thanks, Mr. Adi. Okay. Any final questions? We have time for one final question. Yes, please, Miss Amrita.
And I think there are other people from the class of 81 who can also speak, because my voice is a bit tired.
I think you need to talk about why you got interested in water in the first
Yeah, actually, I forgot to say that in the beginning. But my journey started from Woodstock. And the work I'm doing is very much because I spent 2 years here. And I was the only girl in the advanced geography AP class with Mr. Elgin Edwards. Yeah, Edwards. And we went inside the big dam, the Terry Dam, and we had to wear helmets, and we were walking in that dam. And when I came back 30 years later, when my son was here in class of 2014, and I wanted to take him to see the dam, and we went and we saw the dam right from the top and what had been submerged, and that just hit me. But I came back to Missouri to do my undergraduate research on the Chipko movement as well in 1982, a year after graduating. And the Chipko movement, Sundarlal Bahugnaji, I stayed with him in his ashram. I visited Chandi Prasad Bhatt. I traveled in the Himalayas. And then my PhD work was on the Ganga and the cleaning of the Ganga way back in 86, 87. And so for me, it's always been around water, but my journey. And so you asked me what was Woodstock like in 81 with water. Girls, how many of you remember?
I actually wanted to ask this question. I don't know. I used to go for walks down the ridge from Midlands. Midlands Street? Yeah. We're not allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's this water project. Because it used to be, at least during the monsoon, you could walk down the back of the ridge and there was a waterfall that comes down inside a cave. That was one of the coolest things I ever saw. So this needs to be part of the water project.
Yeah.
Explore the local watershed.
Yeah, that's what we want to do.
Not covered in leeches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we ever had any water shortages, did we? We did? Yeah? Do you remember that?
We had the famous drought year when all the girls
UT, tell me. Stand up, UT, because we can see you. Yeah. For 3, yeah. Yeah. And now they have 4 hours a day or something. Yeah, yeah.
Well, there was the drought year where we had no showers for 3 weeks. And they finally let us go
Yeah.
take showers at hostel. Yeah, and then the boys, of course, set up very elaborate pranks around that.
Yeah. Okay, so we did have a lot of water issues. I'm not remembering fully. I do remember the showers. I do remember that. And I do remember how water was being boiled on wood stoves and things. Yeah, I do remember that. Oh, you can also tell us what water was like then. You were here.
I agree. Yes, we went lots of times without water, and all of our water that came into was pumped in from somewhere else, and we had our reservoirs pumped
Right.
in, and so it was all brought into our home. So there were periods of time when water was not pumped in, and so we had water.
Yeah.
And much of the rainwater that we captured during the time of monsoons was just in reservoirs outside our homes.
Right. Right. So we did do some rainwater things in those days, yeah?
We had a greater problem with the electricity.
Yeah, electricity, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think, I think this history of what water meant for people back then is so important to capture, you know? I mean, just the people who are here for the board meeting, who were here 40, 50 years ago, I think if we can just do quick interviews with them and get their understanding, it would be wonderful if the student team worked on that, you know?
Absolutely.
And then if they had any pictures to share, that would be great as well.
We should do that while everybody's on
Yeah,
campus.
yeah.
I can show you what Midland Stream looks like.
You have pictures of Middle Street? Oh, wow, yeah, Deirdre probably has. Mrs. Sanjaya.
Actually, there are opportunities for students to go down to Midland Stream. There's a whole group that is working with water and with the organization called Cedar in Dehradun, with whom we've collaborated and you're working to do it.
Right,
So they are doing a research with the help of Woodstock students on that project to just tap on what the flow is down there
right.
at the moment at Midlands. So the Woodstock students are actually collecting data on
Midland Stream right now. Okay.
the flow.
Okay, okay. So we'd like to work, I mean, Akshay, I know you're back there. We'd like to, have the school as part of this whole plan towards an exhibition, do a water audit of the school. You know, where is my water coming from? Where is my water going? How much am I using every day? How much water goes into the production of food for how many people here? I mean, that's just mind-boggling to start thinking about all the questions that one could possibly raise. And what can I do to ensure some kind of future water sustainability? You know, how much water do we lose? And the landslides that still happen over here, can't we do some small little catchment things like watershed work and, conserve water and think about soil moisture and just little things, not really big things, It's the small things that add up and count.
Yes, absolutely.
And also saving. So one of the things that I do, and I'm going to leave this with all of you, how many of you have heard of the Cutting Pani campaign that a young girl in Bangalore started many years ago? Okay, you haven't heard about it. So, when you go to restaurants with your parents, how the waiters keep filling your glasses with water? And this girl, 15 years old, started this in Bangalore, just saying, just fill my glass half. And I always tell them not to fill my glass with water. Because if you're not going to drink all that water, it's just going to get thrown away. If you're going to buy a water bottle at a restaurant because you don't have any other water or because you're concerned about the water you're drinking, and if you don't finish it, take it home with you. I travel with a water bottle, I'm sure all of you do, but it's not something that all of us always did. It was so easy to buy a plastic bottle of water. So those are the kind of things that on the campus you can start thinking about, how much water am I filling my glass with? Am I throwing it away? If I'm throwing it away, where am I throwing it? Just think about the small things that you can do, and encourage when you go out to eat, just get them now to keep filling up your glass with water. It's just going to be wasted if you're not drinking it. That's something you can do.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. Let's give her another round of applause. And we would like to present you with a small gift basket. It has some things from around Woodstock, from
Oh, wow.
CFI, from the Hannaful Center, from Missouri as well, so please enjoy.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
That's lovely. Yes, thank you. Trying to make my bag less.
You may have to keep some of it here and then come back and take it home
okay,
next time.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you. And as I said, please pick up a postcard from here because I don't plan to take them back anywhere.
Yes,
So-
please come pick up a postcard. And Dr. Sarah will be outside or in here somewhere milling around. If I know a lot of you had questions or wanted to talk to her further,
There's tea outside.
there's tea and
Pani Puri.
also good snacks. So please make your way out there, and don't forget, if you'd like to be a part of future collaboration, tomorrow, Lions Lounge, 12:30 to 2. Thanks, everybody.
So tea outside, hand out items here, displays in the sunroom. Work your way around, people.